Okay, you guys are not going to believe this story. Imagine finally buying your dream house, like the perfect, gorgeous Victorian you've always wanted, only to find out it bleeds. Yes, you heard me, bleeds. Every September, like clockwork, the walls just start oozing thick, red stuff. Welcome to Margaret Hartman's life in the September house. So meet Margaret. All she ever wanted was a forever home, a place to sink down roots after a childhood spent bouncing around. She and her husband Hal, a struggling writer, finally scraped enough together years after their daughter Katherine flew the coop to buy this stunning, ridiculously cheap Victorian. And yeah, red flag number one, why so cheap? Well, the realtor mumbled something about a century-old murder-suicide and some other deaths, but Margaret and Hal were too busy mentally placing furniture to really listen. Big mistake. Huge. At first, it's bliss. They move in during the spring, May to be exact. Unpacking, dreaming. But then things get weird. Objects move on their own. Doors open, dead birds start kamikazing into the windows. Hal thinks Margaret's losing it, but even he starts feeling the creepy vibes, especially in the basement, which feels wrong from day one. Margaret starts seeing figures out of the corner of her eye, hearing whispers. Eventually, she kind of coaxes one out, a tall, shadowy presence who turns out to be Frederica, the ghost of a housekeeper murdered in the house over 100 years ago, complete with a gruesome axe wound splitting her head open. Surprisingly, Frederica's pretty chill, mostly just wants to keep house and make tea, even though she came with the property, not the job description. Margaret's like, okay, I have a ghost housekeeper. Guess this is my life now. She even compares befriending Frederica to taming a feral cat, which is kind of sweet in a super messed up way. But Frederica isn't the only resident who overstayed their welcome. Soon, Margaret meets Elias, a creepy ghost boy around 9 or 10 with milky eyes who just stares. He doesn't talk, just occasionally howls like a dying jet engine and tries to bite you if you get too close. Margaret learns to navigate around him, literally dodging his fangs to make toast. And then there are others like Blythe, burned alive in a fireplace, who crawls out leaving ash trails and hates lit fires, and Jasper, Frederica's murderer, and Blythe's husband, who just hangs out broken like a spider in an upstairs closet, endlessly trying to strike a match. Margaret starts developing rules to cope. Don't light fires, stay out of Elias's personal space, unless you want a chunk taken out of you, ignore Jasper. Typical homeowner stuff. Then comes September. Oh, September. That's when things go from haunted house quirky to full-blown nightmare fuel. The walls start bleeding, starting in the master bedroom and eventually cascading down the stairs and clotting red waterfalls by month's end. Nightly moaning escalates into horrific screaming that makes sleep impossible. And the kids arrive. Angelica shows up first, a girl ghost with a caved-in skull and a dangling eyeball, silently pointing towards the basement. Soon, she's joined by others. Julian, who casually lets his intestines spill out. Charles and Constance, twins covered in stab wounds. Henry, or Thomas Tobias, missing an arm. James, with no legs, dragging himself along. They all just appear, point at the basement, and sometimes make awful noises. Frederica gets agitated, moving furniture randomly, stacking things obsessively. The birds go on suicide missions against the windows with alarming frequency. It's chaos. Hal, initially in denial, calling the blood a leak, starts losing it. After their third September, which apparently involved a very bad trip to the basement where Hal got his leg shredded by whatever's down there, he's done. He starts drinking again, hiding empty bottles in his locked office cabinets. He becomes withdrawn, terrified, insisting they need to leave, even burn the house down. Margaret, bless her heart, refuses. This house is her anchor, the only real home she's ever had. Ghosts and gore be damned. She's survived worse, she thinks, and oh boy, the flashbacks to Hal's abuse before he got sober confirm she has survived worse. She believes if she just follows the rules, she can manage it. So Hal leaves, vanishing one day after begging her to come with him. Fast forward a month, and Katherine, their now adult daughter, is blowing up Margaret's phone. She can't reach Hal. Margaret finally spills some of the beans. Dad left. Katherine, pragmatic and probably remembering her dad's less than stable past, immediately suspects foul play and insists on coming down to investigate, booking a flight for mid-September. Margaret is horrified. Katherine has never been to the house, knows nothing about the Occupants. How can she possibly keep her daughter safe during the worst month of the year? Damage control mode activated. Margaret calls Father Cyrus, the elderly, possibly senile priest who's the only one who ever believed them and performs house blessings. The blessings are like aspirin for a migraine. They dull the horror for a bit, but don't cure it. She asks Frederica, who is not a fan of priests, to stay hidden. And crucially, she takes the boards off the basement door. Can't have Katherine getting suspicious, right? The blessing goes sideways when Father Cyrus insists on opening the basement door. Big no-no. And promptly gets possessed, levitates, and vomits a swarm of flies before fleeing in terror. Yeah, not ideal. Margaret also digs up Elias's mother's bones again and performs the reunion ritual to buy a week of peace from him. Katherine arrives, stressed and demanding answers. She's impressed by the house, but immediately clashes with Margaret over the lack of police action. She ransacks Hal's office, breaking open locked cabinets and discovering the hoard of empty whiskey bottles and his AA chips confirming his relapse. They file a police report, but the cops are dismissive, thinking Hal just skipped town. Margaret, meanwhile, is unraveling. The lack of sleep, the escalating hauntings, Frederica's increasing chaos, stacking plates, hiding tea bags, moving furniture, putting knives in the sink, and the stress of hiding it all from Katherine are taking their toll. She starts seeing the pranksters outside the house, a limerick about Val in a bar bathroom, Elias's mother's song on the radio. Things come to a head when Elias bites Margaret's arm, leaving deep wounds. Katherine sees the fresh injury and assumes the worst about Hal. Then she sees Margaret talking to apparently empty air, alias Frederica. Katherine, seriously worried about Margaret's sanity, administers a cognitive test she got from Claire's therapist girlfriend. Margaret fails spectacularly, distracted by the swarm of invisible, to Katherine, ghost children chanting, "He's down there." The final straw? Margaret vomits dead flies right in front of her. Katherine, convinced Margaret has completely lost it and is a danger to herself, declares she's taking her to the hospital, forcibly if necessary. Just as Katherine is about to drag her out, the police call. They found the cab driver who picked Hal up from the motel. And guess where he dropped Hal off that night? Right back at the house. Dun dun dun! The police return, now suspicious of Margaret. Price and Coop go down to the basement. Price comes back up, white as a sheet, and says the words everyone's been dreading. He's down there. Hal's body has been in the basement this whole time. Chaos erupts. Katherine tries to see. Coop finds Hal's corpse, confirming he's dead and likely murdered. Jones moves to arrest Margaret. And that's when the house really loses it. The moaning starts, audible to everyone. Margaret's handcuffs unlock themselves. The front door slams shut, trapping them inside. Red liquid pours down the stairs. Birds attack the house relentlessly. And then the ghosts become visible to everyone. Angelica, Julian, Elias, Blythe, the twins, James, Henry, they all appear, terrifying the police and Katherine. It's utter chaos. Then silence. And one by one, Price, Coop, and McDouglas are gruesomely taken by the house, their bodies twisted and broken by an unseen force. McDouglas, blaming Margaret, tries to shoot her just before he's pulled away. Jones bursts back in, having survived the birds, only to witness the aftermath. And then he appears. Master Vale, the tall, skeletal man from the basement, materializes right behind Katherine. He grabs her, laughing that awful scream laugh, and drags her toward the basement. Margaret snaps. Protective Mama Bear mode engaged. She chases them down, sees Hal's lifeless body in the corner, and tells Katherine to run. Margaret confronts Vale, unleashing years of repressed rage, declaring the house hers and ordering the monster out. Vale attacks, choking her. Through his touch, Margaret sees everything. His cruel past, his crimes against the children, his evil influence on the others, and finally, Hal, confirming Val ended him when he came back with the gasoline. Just as Margaret's fading, Katherine returns, wielding George Vale's old paddling stick. She fights him off, but it breaks. Just as Vale corners them again, Frederica appears, blocking him. Then Edie's ghost appears beside Frederica. Elias attacks Vale fiercely, and suddenly it's an all-out ghost war. All the pranksters, Elias's mother Hattie, even Blythe join in, once confronting Vale, forcing him back while Margaret, Katherine, Frederica, and Edie scream, "Get out!" Blythe sets him ablaze. Vale is driven from the house, a broken shadow of himself on the lawn. Angelica calmly walks out and finishes it. He dissolves into nothing. Silence. Peace. The sun shines, the remaining spirits seem calm, finally finding rest, some fading away. Jones, utterly shaken, calls for backup. Homicide, ambulances, psychics, the church, everyone. Katherine decides to stay longer. Margaret and Katherine, covered in grime and dust, sit on the porch rockers. Fredricka offers tea. Tea sounds lovely, Margaret says. Woo! What a ride, right? Margaret finally got her home, but the price was steeper than she ever imagined. She survived, sure, but was it worth it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And hey, if you survived this recap, maybe hit that like button and subscribe for more spooky stories. See ya.